get started. I'm Sophie, the Democracy Services Advisor. I'll now invite the chair, now invite the panel to select a chair.
I'll move that Councillor Wong is appointed as chair.
I'm second.
All right.
Aye.
Over to you, Chair.
Do I need to change seats or I'm all good here?
You're good then.
Okay. All right, so let's get started then. There are no apologies. We have Councillor Gladding, Councillor Cox and myself, Councillor Wong, in attendance. Any declarations of conflict of interest?
Not for me.
Not from me, either.
None from me either. Okay, so we have confirmation of the agenda to approve. Find it, here we go. So hearing panel report, today we are looking at the draft Easter Sunday shop trading policy 2025, and we've got some numerous attachments here. Attachment A is the draft Easter Sunday trading policy 2025. Attachment B, statement of policy proposal for the Easter Sunday trading, and attachment C, Easter Sunday shop trading policy 2017, which is now expired, and attachment D, submissions. So we also have, can I have someone move that agenda?
Happy to move.
I'll second.
Correct. So we've got Councillor Gladding and Councillor Cox seconding. So we've got some reporting officers here. We've got Kerry Williams and Anto Hall speaking on behalf of this report. So I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Wong, for outlining that agenda. I don't have anything to add to the report except to clarify that in the report, there was one submitter to be heard who has since withdrawn since this report was filed as far as presenting verbally. So the role of the panel today is focused to receiving the written submissions and making a recommendation to council on a final policy that will go to it for adoption at the 20 March meeting. So needing from the panel, it's preferred option as outlined in the report. I don't have anything else to add unless you do, Anto, before we turn to any questions. And it's a pretty straightforward policy, so I don't think we need to, split it into segments or anything. I'll leave it to you, Councillor Wong, to lead us through that.
That's fine. So why don't we open it up for questions from panel? Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It sort of follows on from what you raised yesterday. Just a question on the paragraph 4 about the MB to responsibility of Ministry of Business Education, Innovation and Employment, not the QLDC. Do MB actually have an office or any presence in Queenstown and Wanaka or the area? They don't have an office here. I'm just interested because this is something that will come up. Yes, when we talk regional deals and that too. What the government, how are they going to do it? They haven't got a presence here.
I can talk to some degree from a regulatory perspective. While they don't have staff here, we don't necessarily engage with them on this specific topic, but if we're doing something to do with, we've done joint investigations around brothels and things with them, so they do have staff that they can send to the district.
They send them in, okay. But when it says not the QLDC, so you don't expect to have any involvement in this, or do you have some sort of involved messaging or anything we do from council?
Yes, we haven't really had a role in the past. Where a role may come from is if there was, say, a request for service that was lodged through the system. It may end up with my enforcement team that would initially look at it, work out what's the detail of the complaint. If we felt that it was outside the scope of our role, we'd then hand it over to him. Really? But when it comes to the practical application and enforcement, we don't really have a role within it.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose in a similar vein, I think this is great, and look, the act is good, but my concern is around how we ensure that our policy doesn't impact people badly. I don't think there would be many people that necessarily apply to, but look, it's a concern for me that MB's doing the enforcing, but it's our policy. So anyway, a few things. One was there's no review clause, and I had a look at some of the other ESTA trading policies, and I know that it's our second one, at least, so we don't have to review it in 5 years. But I had a look at some of the others that are out there, and they do have review clauses. Coronerals was like 10 years. I think it's important to have an indication that you are open, you know, that we are able to review it at any time and that we do have a review clause. I think there's some incentive then on the businesses to go, this isn't necessarily forever. If we don't do the right thing, this policy can be reviewed. And I think stating it in the policy would be helpful. Coroners, I think, had a note of, you know, it will be reviewed in 10 years and we retain the ability to review it at any time. And I just, yeah.
Can I interject
Yeah,
on that
sure.
point so we can cover that off? Great points, and I think it's probably a legislative oversight that there's no restriction, because I
Yeah.
think that from when I read Hansard, this was a preference from the legislative drafters that this be a bylaw, but it's ended up a policy.
Right.
And so what in the drafting of this that you see before you, I've applied council's practice in terms of all council adopted policies, which was a 3-year review period.
Okay.
But open to discussion with the panel whether it would like to vary from that, as it can do in its recommendation to council on a final policy. So just explaining that at the top of the draft, I've got the next review,
Oh, yeah.
March 2028.
Oh, is it there? Sorry, I missed it. I was
Yeah,
looking.
and so, and the reason behind that is just that's how we are doing our review cycle for all of council policies.
Yeah.
But as you pointed out, the ledge is permissive in that. If
Yeah.
you wanted to extend that, that's a recommendation we could put to council, counterbalancing with the
Yeah.
practice we have for other policies.
So I don't think it's not a complicated policy. You're either doing it or you're not doing it, right? And so, you know, there's not a whole lot of nuance that you might need to debate because things went wrong or whatever. So I tend to think from a workload perspective, a longer period for, you know, required review would be better, but a note that, you know, if things are going wrong, we can review it at any time. That would be my preference, and I've got a point to add to that, but the others might like to weigh in on. It's.
Well, I don't know, you say you're trying to do a standard review for policies, a rolling review.
And that comes from the, our independent audit of our long-term
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
3 years is right.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about workload, but it's a pretty simple policy. The review might take 5 minutes, that's all okay.
Well,
But having the clause in there so that the public can read something, I don't know whether you should have a line like you're suggesting in the policy for review or not. Should that be written in the policy?
I think it should, personally, I think it should be, because I think it sends a message that, you know, two businesses. that,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
you know, we can review it if you're not complying, and we can undo it if we feel like there's undue pressure on employees to work
I don't know.
Sundays. Something, because if EMB is not enforcing and if we're noticing problems crop up, which I don't think we will, but I just think it.
I have no issues with adding a no sentence that says that it's open to council to review the policy at any time. Should it choose to, that's just stating the obvious.
Yeah.
And so I guess the only outstanding matter in this issue is whether or not the panel would like to vary from a 3-year to extend that because of
Just think it's
Well, I think if you've got a, you know, look in all policies, I don't see any issue why you just keep it in that rolling review 3 years, and with the clause that it can, you know, or any other time that, well, I don't know.
So if it's every 3 years,
just-
if it's every 3 years, we probably don't need that other line in there, to be fair, because 3 years is a
No,
reasonable.
I think we should stick with 3 years, because start putting
Okay.
other timelines in and just get something confused.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think?
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Well, as long as it doesn't add too much workload, I'm like, the evidence is suggesting, and historic evidence anyway of this policy, is that there hasn't been any issues. So I can't really see any coming up in the near future, but if it makes it easier to have it on a rolling 3-year cycle.
Until the government changes the legislation.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
Okay.
I've got a couple more points, sorry. Just around, do we need to do anything with that? No, we don't. Just around education and just keeping track of how roles, and I don't know whether that needs to be in the policy or whether it should, but I think it should be agreed by council or put to them to agree. Sort of a program of, you know, it's coming up to Easter, we just do some comms on making sure everybody knows their rights, because it's quite complicated in the Act, you know, who the responsibilities of the employee to let the employee know, and that, you know, and then the other thing was, you know, if we're doing reviews, should we understand what the impact is on employees and employers, and just conduct a survey at certain intervals, whether that be 3 yearly, whether that be yearly, I don't know, to sort of say, basically the survey in my mind would be around the questions around the responsibilities in the Act. You know, did you feel compelled to work? Were you given an option? You know, to understand whether, you know, there's just widespread non-compliance or not. Because I do think for some people it's Easter and they don't want to work, and some of them will be migrants and they won't understand their rights. And I think given the makeup of our community and the workers that are in it, I think we have an obligation to educate everybody about what they're supposed to do, given that we have put this policy in place that frees things up for everybody. I think I feel a level of responsibility around making sure we educate and survey to some extent. And it may be down the track that you do these things and you never get any feedback and you go, well, look, we don't need to do that. You could pull the requirement in 3 years' time when you review the policy. But I just feel like putting it out there, I know some people, some employers will abuse it.
Is there a question?
No question.
I always wanted to use that line.
What's that?
I always wanted to use that line.
No question.
Is there a
Is
question?
there a question?
Oh,
Oh, so, well, no, there's no question because we're deliberating, so.
Oh, we haven't got there yet.
no, just on
We're still
your,
questioning these
your,
Yeah.
I think the comms should be, we could, you know, we could ask for that in the agenda item, but I don't know if it should be in the policy. And I don't think, I think I'm really nervous about putting us, calling for a survey in the policy. It might be something.
We could leave it open as to what it was, but I think there needs to be some level of, we take some responsibility by asking about the impacts of policy. And like I said,
You could, yeah, you could do that
Look
with
where
the
up.
comms if you got any, yeah, but then again, you're inviting people to put in requests for service, I suppose, but that's all right, I suppose. Then you can funnel it to Epic, I don't know.
Well, if I was to pose it in a question, do you feel comfortable QLDC giving advice on employment law when obviously it's not our area of expertise to be able to do that in the first place?
Yeah, my answer would be no, that the reason we're in the room is that the policy enables the need for consistency across the district, high visitor numbers at this time of year, you know, providing shops with the option to choose, and that we don't have particularly the expertise on enforcing the Employment Relations Act.
I'm not talking about enforcement, I'm talking about making sure that the requirements on employees and employers around the Act are clear, because what we're doing is we're using the Act and departing from the status quo and saying, we're going to open in this district. You know, some do, some don't. Most little ones do. I think the big towns big cities tend not to. So we're a departure, but with that, there are certain responsibilities, you know, that given that we've done that, there are certain, you know, the employers have certain responsibilities and the employees have certain responsibilities around that too. And they wouldn't apply if we didn't have this policy. It would all just be, you know, working. So given that MB's not here and is not doing this.
I'll just chuck in an idea, and given it's more of an open forum discussion, is that?
Seems to be the way.
Sorry.
I can operate however you wish. I take on board your education element, and we've got a good Johns team that are very proactive in this space that could also incorporate giving some understanding of that if the people have got concerns, where to raise those concerns.
Yeah.
So like
That's the line I was thinking.
because I feel it's more appropriate that they're directed at MB than at us. And if we do a survey, then we might start receiving the concerns when if we proactive within our education, and also as part of their education, not just saying a policy exists, but if there's concerns around it, this is the appropriate agency to raise concerns with. They can provide the support network and also the information about
Yeah.
the detail of it. Because there's just a concern about doing a survey, what's going to come out of that, and then you've also got to be able to analyse that information, and the survey might be, if you're saying you've got a concern, really it's actually a complaint that you're lodging, so you've got to be careful, is it a survey or open, the complaint process?
Questions could be, but look, I know we haven't done it before, and I'm just like, if you're reviewing a policy, then how would you have any understanding of
Well, if
with
we,
the impact of your policy down the track? And maybe, you know, if we were reviewing it 3 years down, maybe as part of the review, we could incorporate some.
I guess we could engage with NIMBY to say, since their introduction to the new policy, and obviously we're doing education, make sure people know where to go, we get that information from NIMBY. So we can be concerns that you have raised.
Well, I mean, assuming people knew, our education would have to be in the front end, they have to be really good in helping people to understand it, you know.
And there's other organisations as well other than council. So there's Chamber of Commerce, for example, would be in a prime position to be educating the business community on the acts around Easter trading.
But we can't ensure that happens. We can't
No, we
require
can't.
them to do that.
But we can't
Or we
ensure
can-
that business communities are doing what they're supposed to do according to the Act either.
No, which is why I'm wanting education and there's some sort of feedback. And then obviously the clause in there which says it will be reviewed so that it helps to keep everybody doing the right thing. Otherwise, I could see very easily, having been a, you know, that kind of worker, that you just get, there's a real expectation, like even if you know you can step aside from it, you can't really, because the employer, unless the employer is really up front and says, look, you know, I'm not requiring to work, it's fine for you not to, unless they're like that, and most aren't that way inclined, to be fair. Then some people who are clearly religious may be working on a day, or they don't even have to be clearly religious. You know, you get that, this is your weekend, this is your Easter weekend, and you as of a right have it off.
Most of them want to work, they're on double pay.
And some will want to work, yeah, absolutely, but some really won't.
Bob?
The question then back onto the comms side, we've got the policy, but what you said about the comms team putting messaging out there, how does that happen if we don't put anything in the policy? I'm not keen on putting it in the policy, I just want to make sure we got another avenue to.
I'm just going to be careful with my response. We don't have the comms team or legal representation around the employment law and stuff, so we're trying to just be open around my belief around how this can be managed best, and certainly understand where you're coming from. But typically, the comms team is very proactive in taking on board any suggestions, particularly from council or panels.
Yep.
And if you said today, we're following this, Carrie and I would sort of raise saying, hey, as part of this, we just need to ensure that we're messaging that we've got a new policy and then ongoing information as we lead into Easter, which also incorporates information around the responsible parties being MB, for example. And they'll just put that onto their register. As you guys know, we have a lot of different comms for different functions, and so we've got good confidence is what I'm saying.
And so then the next review in 3 years' time, we have the information from Indy and have any information you've received directly or the.
Yeah, and that was raised through this process.
And we can put that into the
Yeah.
review process. Yeah, okay.
Sounds good.
So that doesn't make it into the policy, that's just what you'll carry
And
forward.
we can talk about it at the council meeting, I guess, about what we.
Oh, that's
I think we could recommend that we recommend that it's a recommendation for the council to agree it.
Yeah,
Agree to
I think
some comments
we-
alongside.
The council, the panel discussed and agreed that
Yeah.
promotion of the policy in the community. Is appropriate.
Oh, not, I wouldn't word it that way, because it's not the promotion of the policy, it's more
No.
the,
Okay, promotion is the wrong word.
yeah, education around the responsibilities of employees.
Well,
We have to do that, because that's even in our policy, so we can't say that we're not, because in the policy it clearly states some of the responsibilities. It just, to me, it needs to go a bit further. I don't see why we can't interpret the law for people. It's very basic law. No, it's very basic. It's explicit directions. I mean, have you read the Act? It's very explicit. There's no reason why we can't. I'd be really concerned if we can't.
Yes, Bob.
Can I just clarify then, you would write something in the agenda item, council about that. That we saying?
That comms use its channels to tell the community, here's our policy.
No, it's not what I'm getting at, and
And
that's
you-
because I'd put something in the policy, I'd put more in the policy if that's as far as we're gonna go.
Okay, so that's different than what I was suggesting around separate from the actual policy.
Oh, look, I'll bring the act
No,
up.
it's just, I think it gets down, and we're gonna get on to Mr. Chair.
Oh,
The paragraph about that, the submission we had proposing, it's a matter of communicating the basics of what the act says, basically.
So that one submission that was proposing, not necessarily the policy, but more the
Yeah.
wording. Am I right in saying that you gave some wording that might suffice?
That's for the panel's consideration.
And I think, no, I would like to actually look at that wording and put that into the policy, acknowledging that one submission. But also that the fact that there were 7 submissions that were in support of the policy without any changes. I think in terms of the community feedback, we've had one response against, but they would be happy with the policy with the change of wording. And this is what this does. You know what page it's on?
So sorry, that's paragraph 18
It's page 9,
is
Paragraph
the suggested wording, should the panel want
the Act
to
and the Employment Relations Act.
respond to that submitter, that just adds a little bit more flesh around the Employment Relations Act responsibilities.
I personally wouldn't be comfortable putting more than that into the policy. For the fact that it is not our area of expertise. It's not us as an organisation that should be directing businesses on how to conduct themselves as a business.
Sorry,
So
it's the law. And
it is the law, but it's not our law.
no, but we are making a policy that brings these provisions into play.
And we're
And if-
directing them to the Act.
So what I'm saying is we've got migrant workers in this place that don't understand our laws, and they may be compelled to work when they don't want to and may not understand their rights. And I think it is very basic. For example, 5H, shop employees' right to refuse work on Easter Sunday. A shop employee may refuse to work on Easter Sunday and is not required to provide the employer with a reason for refusing to work on Easter Sunday. There's no interpretation there. There is no reason why we can't phrase that in a way that says, hey, everybody, just so you know, Easter coming up, you know, your business may be open, but you may refuse to work, and you don't have to give your employer a reason why you don't want to work. It's not tricky.
So can I be clear whether that recommendation is to be part of the body of the policy or what you want to call it, that goes to the community, just for my, do you want in the policy document? Or do you just want to, are you
No, I'm quite happy
advocating
with it
that this
being out.
is how we,
So I guess what I'm saying is the policy is fine as it is.
okay, no, that's what I, yeah.
As long as we can word a recommendation, this is just for me, word a recommendation to the council that QLDC does comms every year ahead of Easter, that explains the provisions of the Act around, you know, responsibilities of employers and employees, as they're set out specifically. I don't know how you best do that, whether, you know, you could just take a photo of the provisions and chuck them in scuttlebutt, or whether, you know, I'm not asking for anything weird. It's the law, it's basic, it's there, and we're the ones that are making it relevant. And so I think we need to let people know what their rights are.
Okay, so for the other panel's consideration, what's being proposed is that, you know, along with telling the community we have a policy, it is spelling out the Employment Relations Act obligations
No, no.
alongside that,
Not in the policy.
not in the, there's
No,
any,
yeah, a separate
alongside.
recommendation that
Yeah.
just explains how we expect
Yeah.
council to consult.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So
So
that,
that's,
Outside of the
for
policy.
council, not in the policy itself.
Yeah,
But this one here though, the paragraph 18.
that could go in, should go in.
yes, we haven't
Yeah.
signed that off, so,
Okay, we're coming to that, right?
Yes.
So
So let's discuss that now. Do you want to start?
I support putting those words in.
I support putting words in.
Sounds like we're
Right.
unanimous on that.
And
That's fine.
the other submissions, I hadn't have any queries on the other submission. I don't-
No, well, Any comments on the other submissions? They all seem relatively in support.
In support,
Same.
yeah, no, I agree, this is a good thing for the community, I just want to make sure people's rights are protected as to the extent that we can.
So preparation for the agenda items, would you be willing just to set us a draft on what that wording proposing for the,
For the
about the act?
report,
Yeah, about promote or about the educational thing. Just send it, so we have a quick look at it. We don't want to be arguing about it on the council meeting.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, any more discussion?
can I just tie off that matter that, you know, the panel's recommendation is, and so that we're not leaving matters lying on the table, that this follow-up point, it's not a condition of the recommendations
No.
in the
I
report. Does that make sense to
I
you?
see what you're saying.
I don't want to leave the whole hearing lying on the table subject to approval.
No.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm
Put that in.
saying it, so that we're 100% clear that we will absolutely action this, but I don't want
You action.
the recommendation to be contingent on.
No.
No, we don't want it.
But that would be I mean, I guess what I'm expecting is, note the contents of the report, agree the recommendations of the hearing panel and the thing, and point 3, agree to council. Communicating, blah, 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 how you word it, think of words. And then look, if people don't want to agree point 3, then I don't agree point 3. Do that at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, guys.
You don't need the exact wording of point 3 now, do you? Okay, let's leave it at that.
It's better if Gary works it up anyway, and I'll make.
All right. The recommendation in front of us here now then, is to note the contents of the report. Receive all the written submissions to the draft Easter Sunday shop trading policy 2025 and recommend to council a final form of the Easter Sunday shop trading policy 2025 to be adopted following consideration of public feedback and submissions, plus the little addition that you will add later.
I know.
We don't need to.
Do we not need to move it?
We need to
No,
agree
no,
it. We don't need to agree a final. I think we need to agree the final form, which is, you'd word it.
So we have to,
Agree the shop trading policy, with the addition of the wording and blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
But
which is sort of what I suggested, but we haven't got the wording there.
Well, you've got to get it sorted out. We have to put any extra wording in number 3 to cover all that added paragraph.
yeah,
I don't have an issue with adding that. I think that's fine to add that to the recommendation. My point before was just a little bit overkill to make sure that the hearing panel meeting is concluded. So
Yeah.
if you want, okay,
I
so
guess the point is how do we? word
recommend
final?
council final form of the Easter sub trading policy to be adopted following consideration of public. And that will be along with recommendation that council,
Agree to council comms annually.
and I'll send that wording to you.
Do we have to
Oh, I don't think
finalise
that would
wording
be,
now?
does that have to be in our recommendation? I thought you.
Yeah, I'd like it in our recommend, because it's the recommendation of the panel and she need,
Oh,
Kelly needs a
it becomes a
revision.
recommendation on.
Well, our panel, yeah, I mean, to me, we're agreeing to the policy with the extra wording, and we're recommending an additional comms piece ahead of each Easter.
Okay, along with the recommendation that council include our outline ERA obligations relevant to the draft policy.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Is that okay with you, Sophie?
You know that?
Sounds good to me. I'll just read it back with the addition, add to the recommendation along with the recommendation that council include our outline ERA obligations relevant to the draft policy. Is that what you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no,
Fine,
no.
read the whole point 3 here.
So, point 3, Recommend to council a final form of the Easter Sunday shop trading policy 2025 to be adopted following consideration of public feedback from the submissions, along with the recommendation that council include our outline ERA obligations relevant to the draft policy.
That you can't write that, we can't sit here and recommend a final form, we have to recommend the final form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well,
That was what it was telling us to do, but now we've deliberated and we've worked out the final form, we just have to expressly state what the final form is, which is what went out for consultation, but with the paragraph from one of the submitters inserted.
Well, the final form will be the one that's attached to this when it goes to the agenda. What's that paragraph in? A final form.
so the reason A is used is because you guys have altered the wording of the draft that went up for consultation by adding what's in.
That'd be option 2.
So that's why it was used in the drafting of the report. Take your point, about how to,
It's just how to word it.
in the minutes, but that's something I think Sophie Magic's up when the.
Yeah, I just don't want to agree that wording because it looks like we're agreeing the instructions to the deliberations when actually we know what the final form is. It's what went out for consultation with the wording. Submitter inserted.
You lost me.
Yeah, I'm confused now as well.
You
So this is our recommendation from the panel right now.
Yep.
We know the contents report, we've received all written submissions on the draft policy. We're recommending to council a final form because after our deliberation, we changed the draft.
and that will be put up.
Which is the new wording.
Yep, carry on.
So that becomes the final form of our Easter trading shop trading policy to be adopted. And that was, I don't know why we were following consideration of public feedback and submission.
Because again,
Oh,
it's our instruction
Yeah.
to what to do in this hearing, and we don't, that's not our motion, our motion.
no, the same following. So this is indicating that we have considered the public feedback and the submissions. That we've done the final form after we've considered the public feedback and submissions. And then we've gone and thrown another recommendation as to recommend.
Yeah,
We can separate out
What you,
I think it
Put
should be,
another
it should
point.
be number 4.
and then what?
And then-
council chooses to adopt or not adopt the extra
And
point.
that goes to council with the final form of including that paragraph and the policy.
And that-
Yeah, look, it's just weird because our job is to recommend the final form and it doesn't specifically state what we've decided in the minutes.
Well,
Does
no,
that
but
make
this
sense?
isn't the minutes. Minutes will be produced as an outcome of this. Obviously, this report can't have.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, sorry, I know this is really pedantic, but if you were in a council meeting and you had a report, you'd be agreeing to a specific report. And if it had changes, you'd be detailing those changes, amendments. And then so you wouldn't just be recommending a final form of the.
That's what we're doing. We're doing the hearing to get the final thing together.
I know.
If the council turned it at the council meeting, if they want to change it, yes, that'll be written in the.
Yeah, and I think that's what the.
We're not
I think
attaching
that's
the
the
draft.
crux of it is that
We're
there's still
attaching
one
the
more
final.
to go to.
Yeah.
But this isn't the final stop. If it were, it would.
Sorry, Chair, it's not.
No, it's supposed to be straightforward, but, you know,
You're doing well.
so what we're agreeing to here is making 4 points now.
It's easier to split it
That's-
out.
Split it out
So-
and then,
So the fourth is,
so 3 stays as it is. And then 4, we need to find that specific
You
wording
got the wording.
broken out.
it's
Yours.
recommend that council, and then it carries on with what we had previously, rather than, and it's eliminating, I had a long with in there to combine all
Okay.
3, but it's just now standalone.
Okay,
I'll move.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
4 points. That second part of number 3 is becoming a new one.
Everyone clear? Do we need to read it out?
No,
We're all good.
I think we'll just go.
Do we have a mover?
we'll move it.
Yeah. Stops and it's voting second. All right. I think we're done.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. I think that's our panel meeting.
Good.
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 Yes,
Oh, good. I want you back.
2:05.